I think having a film that is exploring those ideas while also kind of searching for a more human connection is really powerful. There's something about it's I don't rewatch movies a huge amount, but I've seen Titane I think like 5 times, which is a lot for me. There's something in it that I just always want to revisit. And I'm like, I'm still not even sure I love the ending. I'm like, I think it's a bit silly, but I'm like, I can't stop watching it.
Happy Halloween, everyone! We're ending our Hot Ghouls of Halloween series with a bang. And by a bang, I mean a threesome. Because we're talking movies, we're talking Titane, Raw, and Angst. Chris, crawl back to the hole you came from. Do you hear me? Can't you feel the energy between you and me?
Yeah, you stole my quote, so cool. Hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of How'd You Like That Movie? We're finishing off our Hot Ghouls of Halloween series with essentially 3 ghouls. First off, we are going to be talking about the 2021 film Titane by writer-director Julia Ducournau, which I totally screwed up. Luckily, our guest is French-Canadian Justine Smith. She's going to help us with some French pronunciation. And then we're also going to be talking about Raw. So we got a lot of female-focused content. Justine, welcome to the show.
I'm super happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, we are very happy to have you here. So, Justine, this is the bio that we have for our guest. She is a screen editor at Cult Montreal, film critic, contributor at Little White Lies, Fantasia Underground film programmer, ruthless content god, hyperallergic, carb queen, and professional pornographer. Sorry, was that supposed to be photographer or pornographer?
No, I write porn also.
You write it like
yeah.
like a novel?
Yeah, there's no for scripts for porn hub stuff.
Nice. Okay, so can we talk about this, or
yeah?
Are you not
no, okay, no, I'm very comfortable.
Wait. No. So you are a pornographic screenplay writer?
Yeah, they have screenplays.
Okay, can you walk us through what does that process look like, and how does it differ? Because do you write also? Like, are you a filmmaker as well? I don't know if I have that.
Not really. I've written a few, but not that much. I wouldn't identify as a filmmaker.
Okay, so walk us through so how does this transaction work? Do you have a director that reaches out, a producer, and they're like, hey, yeah, walk us through the process?
I primarily work with one writer and one producer, and basically they come to me with ideas. A lot of them are very basic stuff, like 3 or 4 pages, like the things you see on the front page of Pornhub, like stepsister is doing homework and gets interrupted by a stepbrother. That's the vast majority of it.
I'm writing this down. This is good stuff.
Occasionally we'll do something more fun. This year we wrote with Ricky Greenwood a musical. We have a 90s video store porn coming out. And so some of it is fun, but most of it is kind of basic. And it's mostly just like the preamble to the actual sex. It's like the talking part.
So, like, does this stuff get storyboarded? Is there do you guys do table reads? Or do you just?
Oh, I don't think so.
So, how long does it take you to write a 4 pages? What's your average turnaround time on something like this?
30 minutes.
I was gonna say 5.
Yeah, no, it's just the process of writing. It's probably closer to 20. It depends. Sometimes there's more specific requests, and in that case it might be longer. But for the very basic stuff, it's very, very simple. And there's only so much you can do. You can't reinvent the wheel every time. So you're doing a lot of similar scenarios.
Do you ever watch some of the stuff you wrote and been like, motherfuckers, that wasn't in the script? Why the fuck is this guy ad-libbing?
It happens all the time. I don't get mad at him because I'm like, well, one, for the most part, I have no idea what the films are called, so it's very difficult for me to identify which ones. I'm like, oh, I have a credit, so I'm like, I did do this, but I have no idea. I don't remember doing it. For the bigger ones, I do notice sometimes they do changes, but I mean, there's like it doesn't really bother me because I know how difficult the work is and they don't have a lot of time. Like sometimes they receive the script. Most shoot like a feature porno, like a 2-hour film, is usually shot in like 3 days. And that is insane. So I don't really, I'm like, if you get the gist of it, I'm like happy. I'm not gonna complain.
And you know what they say, a film is made 3 times, once on the page, once in production, and once in the edit. Right? I guess
Yeah,
it's the same adult film or regular straight film or whatever. I guess it's all just filmmaking, right? So
exactly. I think it's they're a lot of them are great filmmakers too. And it's like that, just that turnaround. I'm surprised that more people working in porn don't make real film, quote unquote real films. But I think it's if there's less money in it. So it's like, but they're able to like the fact that you can make a feature film in 3 days is insane. And they can I know some people who are working in the industry who are trying or try to make quote unquote more legit films because they love cinema. Like a lot of them go into pornography because they are big film fans.
So do you have like, I guess, examples of your work that like we can put in our like links for people to see, or like you said,
Yeah.
you get a credit on these things. So
I wrote, ooh, I don't always remember the name. Confessions of a Sinful Nun 2. That's a classic. Already an instant classic. Um, what? Let me see.
oh my God, this is awesome. So actually we're talking a lot of hot ghouls on this show
Yeah.
right now.
Let's be.
Anyway, you can send
There's
it,
others.
you
Yeah.
can send us that stuff. We'll throw it in the show notes. And yeah, if you're listening and you're like interested in Justine's adult film work, we'll make sure we throw some links up in the show notes. But yeah, okay, moving off of that topic, we could probably, I'm sure, feel like Scott and I could be like children, talk to you about that all day. So what, but you also are doing screen editing for Cult Montreal, and you're a contributor to Little White Lies. And I looked at some of your articles over at Little White Lies. It does seem that you do more work for Cult Montreal, though. Would you say that's correct? Or?
Yeah. I almost have like weekly articles at Cult. Little White Lies, I'm like a contributor sometimes, a few times a year I'll write for them. Sometimes for publication, the print, sometimes for online, but Cult is like primarily my outlet.
And so, and then you're also doing programming for, Fantasia Film Festival. That's big. That's big.
Yeah, I've been doing that for since 2020. I've been the programmer for the underground section. So to me, it's like kind of my dream because it's the films I love. It's like do it yourself, small movies that sometimes people have never heard of, made for no money. I get to be choosy because I don't really get to have to make deals with distributors or companies or whatever. It's like usually to the filmmaker, and we do a lot of world premieres and of people's first features. We had the world premiere of Skinamarink. It was crazy. Um, and it's fun to be able to discover people who are making films sometimes with basically no resources and they're able to do incredible things. I really, really love what I do.
So, are you programming at any other festivals? You're doing bits as well, aren't you? Blood in the Snow.
No, I've never done Blood in the Snow, but a lot of my colleagues do, and like I love them. It's also just they always have such a great lineup. So I've never actually gone either. I really would love to one year.
Well, it's
They always
coming. It's
have.
coming up in November. So,
I know. I'll see, but it's always tough. I've not for other festivals. I did briefly for a couple of years was on the programming committee for Cinema Moderne in Montreal, which is one of our micro cinemas. But they alternate like they at the time it was going to be 1 year, but then it was the pandemic, so I got almost 3 years doing that. This year, actually Pascal Plante, who's a director of Les Chambres Rouges, is on the committee. It's very cool to kind of that they alternate, get a lot of different points of view and different kinds of filmmakers. But I mostly write the porn and then the work at Cult Montreal, and then uh the Fantasia stuff will start more in January. So right now I'm kind of chilling.
So okay, so the porn thing is actually should have been higher in the list of things I read off.
Yeah.
It's not even a throwaway. It's like Cult Montreal, porn, other stuff.
It's incredibly Montreal because like a lot of people don't know the headquarters of the company that owns Pornhub, RedTube, YouPorn, and Brazzers is all based in Montreal.
That's
They just don't
MindGeek,
do,
right?
yeah, MindGeek. They just don't do production here, but we do all the before and after. I've never actually worked directly with them though. I've worked for people who work for them.
Yeah, you're like Pornhub adjacent.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have anything else you want to talk about specifically before we start talking about some cinema here? Or like, do you have any projects that are coming up? Do you have anything that's red hot dropping on one of those streaming services you just listed that you want to talk
Probably.
about?
I have no idea. I like don't keep track. I think the only thing I would like to plug is I believe in December, I have an essay in a release for a Louis Buñuel collection coming out from Radiance Films in the UK on eroticism in the work of Buñuel. So
Cool.
yeah.
Well, we'll off show we'll get some more information on that. And again, anything that you're listening to, audience, as you know, we try to do a really good job of throwing in our show notes or anything that comes up. If you're following our social media, we will definitely be posting about that. Scott, do you have anything for Justine before we move into the film?
Well, just one question. How you were saying in terms of like the directors and stuff that are in the porn industry trying to go mainstream, do you think because there is like a stigma against them kind of thing? Because I know like back when the whole Stormy Daniels with Trump thing happened, she was talking about she has been trying to get like mainstream work as a horror director, but no one would take her on because all her directing stuff was through porn.
I would say there is 100% stigma. I do feel as though the funding process would be longer. I know that there are people who are trying to self-fund, but that has its limits. I think particularly in the United States, there's still like a very Puritan culture, and there's also a lot of like I don't want to like legit fears in the terms of like even the foreign websites, like they're basically beholden to Visa and MasterCard, that these credit card companies control a lot of the fact that there is porn on the internet. And I think that like a lot of people are just afraid of working with people who have a background in sex work and porn because a lot of large companies are pretty quick to just shut it down. And if they shut down your money source, like you're obviously fucked. I don't know if that's the only reason. I do think too, like it's much riskier actually to make a legit film and more expensive and more time consuming. I do think the talent is there though. I think there's a lot of incredibly talented people who could make that transition if they wanted to.
Have you seen Sean Baker's new film, Honora?
I did see it. Yeah.
So we're going to be talking about it more in depth. I just
Okay.
saw it on Thursday, just after it came out or whatever. What's your quick top line though? What were your thoughts?
I really love Mickey Madison. I really like the film, but I can't pin down. There's something about it that I find I don't like, but I don't know what it is.
Do you feel, and again, then we'll move off this topic because then we'll just go down a Sean Baker rabbit hole because I'm a big fanboy. I felt that not that it had a pacing problem, but so that ending's amazing in the car.
Mhm.
And I feel like there's a section, when they're running around looking for the oligarch's son, I felt like they should have gotten to the strip club sooner, which would have just tightened the film up a little bit more because it felt like there's this lull, in my opinion. And I almost wonder if it's because Sean edits his own films and he got just a bit too close to the subject matter material and he just couldn't throw away some of those scenes. It's like, that scene's good. But I just felt like the film starts to lose a bit of steam, and especially because they then end up going to Vegas again as well. And again, this doesn't spoil anything because if you don't know the context, it doesn't matter. It just suddenly felt like you were at the right place for your climax. You had your, what is that, démonture or whatever, your falling action and conclusion. And then it's kind of in this like gully and then there's another blip up in Vegas, and then there's that ending. And it just feels like there's this kind of bowl of time that needs to be shorter. I don't know. Is that maybe that's what I was thinking?
I'm not sure. I feel like
Denouement is the word I was looking for.
I feel like it's like there's a tone thing, and I think a lot of it is in that section. And I don't know if it does run too long or I had false expectations because everyone is like, "Oh my God, the movie's so fun," whatever. And I'm like, I found it like much more. It reminded me of like Uncut Gems in the sense like I found it very stressful, but in a way that felt a lot more dangerous. Like I felt like I'm like she's like in a lot of danger. It made me uncomfortable. But I think that the performances are incredible, and the way he brings people like brings you as the audience into the world is just like fairly unmatched. He has such a great sense of space and character that like it's hard not to love his movies. Like I was just telling a friend, I'm like, you have to go see Red Rocket. Like they're all like so singular, and I feel like especially I think because of when Red Rocket came out, just not enough people have seen it, and there's no movie like it. He's really doing something exceptional.
Yeah, I think when I did my TikTok on it, I said it's sexy, it's erotic and sexy and yet real, right? Which
Yeah.
is become a trademark of Baker's work or whatever, you know what I mean? As you know, your letterbox kind of blurb that you're gonna do. So well, maybe we'll talk offline because I mean, if you're really into Baker, maybe we'll see if you're available to come on the show with our other guests. We're actually gonna have like an SW like a sex worker on to talk about the
That'd be
show as
cool.
well. So we'll talk about that off after the show. But okay, we are going to move into, how do you say it? Titane?
Titane.
Titane. And the director is?
Julia Ducournau.
Okay, so I actually want to kind of like lead into this with a quote from Megan Navarro from Bloody Disgusting. So in reference to this film, she said, sexual and gender identity gets explored through provocative body horror, delivering a viscerally violent and darkly comedic yet tender experience that's difficult to forget. So with that in mind, why don't you explain to us why you wanted to talk about this film?
I love Titane. That's step one. And the reason I love it is I think it's so unusual, but touches on things that are strangely relatable. That sounds terrible, but like I feel like I also love David Cronenberg's Crash, and I'm not saying that they're necessarily similar except in superficial ways, but I feel as though both films are kind of exploring in a way the condition of living in a very tech heavy, industrialized modern world where intimate connections are almost impossible to make except through technology. And I think what we sometimes forget is that the technology that most people are most intimately connected to is a car. It's an extension of ourselves. It's how people get around. Uh,
It's their
has
identity sometimes as well, right? Like certain
it's
people drive
very
a certain type of vehicle.
exactly. And I think having a film that is exploring those ideas while also kind of searching for a more human connection is really powerful. There's something about it's I don't rewatch movies a huge amount, but I've seen Titane I think like 5 times, which is a lot for me. There's something in it that I just always want to revisit. And I'm like, I'm still not even sure I love the ending. I'm like, I think it's a bit silly, but I'm like, I can't stop watching it.
So Scott, thoughts?
Well, one, I've always wanted to know what the origin story of Dominic Toretto was, and now I've seen it from here. But like in terms of joking aside, the thing that like the movie that I kind of compared and contrast this movie to a lot was Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula. Like, because for me, it's like the character of oh my god, I'm having a brain fart, Alexa. Like she's the antagonist, like she's a serial killer, right? Like, and even from the beginning, like, no offense, like when she's a kid and she's bumping that dad in that car, right? Like you're made to like not like her. But then like while this movie goes on, it's just through um through the progress, like you start feeling compassion, you start feeling sympathy for this character that you forget, like for back better lack of better term, like she technically was a monster at the first half of this movie where she was just, you know, doing her siren dance and just like killing people, right? And then like the ending is the same with me. Like I don't know about that ending, but like you just kind of fall in love with this character the way through, and you're just like, fuck, kind of like Gary Oldman. That was the thing that to me, like, I related it to the most.
Like you started identifying with the antagonist is what I'm taking away from this, Scott.
Yeah.
So this is so the first time I watched Titane when it first came out. I mean, it's the 2021 Palme d'Or winner, and so there was a lot of hype around it. So I had no the first time I watched this film, I had no idea what I was about to watch. I was like, this French director, won at Cannes, and I watched it and I was like, this is fucked. This movie is fucked.
Gotcha, bitch.
Okay, so I still think this movie is a fucked up film, but I appreciate it more knowing. So this is for everybody who's listening that maybe is not familiar with this film. This is a extreme, and I'm open to be corrected on this, extreme example of body horror. Like, it is so difficult to watch in so many places. The violence is graphic. The violence is visceral. The way I describe this film to people is like, so most films have like narrative structure. Other films have vibe. I would say that Nicholas Winding Refn is a very vibey kind of director. This to me is emotion. The scenes evoke, not that it's gorgeously shot and the acting is fantastic, but it's almost like if you look at it in a way of like, it moves from emotion to emotion to emotion, it makes more sense than trying to understand it as like a story. Thoughts on that? Or
I would agree, and I do think I never made the comparison, but I like what Scott was saying about Bram Stoker's Dracula, because I think why I love that film too is that it is a love story, and I think this is a love story. It's just not romantic love. It's really the love of a father and his son. It's just that his son is a woman who is pregnant with a car.
Hold up. Wait a minute.
And I think that maybe the movie is like relentlessly dark and depressing and violent. Like I have a pretty high tolerance, and there were moments of this where I had to like look away.
What would you say, just as a sidebar? So what is one of the most graphic scenes or the most challenging scenes for you to watch?
It's actually, to me, not the most graphic. There's two moments that I find like unbearable to watch, and I force myself to like really watch what she does, and she actually shows nothing. It's just all sound and suggestion. When she almost bites off the nipple, that I found like horrifying. But again, it's like you really don't see very much. It's just the idea of it and the way that like whatever that prosthetic where you see it stretch, it's just like really unsettling. And when she breaks her own nose, I could not watch that. The first time I saw the movie, like I just was like, I just found it horrifying. And the sound of the crack. But then I watched it and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna like watch this properly. And like you don't see anything. It's like she's just playing a mind game with you, but it's really unsettling. And then the third one is like when they find in the, what do you call it? Like the firefighter simulator, when he finds the bodies. I find that like
you're talking about he's seeing the child's body
yeah.
outlined. Yeah, that's a hard scene. I also found the like her when she tries to do the abortion with
that's for me
sewing needle. I was like, fuck, man. And also because it goes on, it feels like it's like 2.5 minutes of her jabbing a needle up inside of herself and just like bam, 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 covered in oil. And I'm just like, please just make this fucking stop, man.
That whole sequence though, like with the way when she crushes somebody's skull with the chair, and then she's so tired, and then she just sits on the chair. I was like, this is deranged.
She goes upstairs and she's like, and in French is like how many are there of you?
Yeah, and they just starts listing names, and they're all like really like silly names, like Juju, and there's Juju and Philippe and Fafana. It's like they're all like just little pet names. It's like it's also like strangely sweet, and then it's terrible because the man seemed very nice, and she hugs him, and you're like, oh, but then she kills him too.
And then she kills him in a graphic way. So I really like the opening of this film as far as cinematography. I mean, again, it's beautifully shot. There's nothing wrong. The cinematographer is the same cinematographer that worked on Raw, Ruben Impens. He's like Belgian or whatever. He also did the Broken Circle Breakdown, which is another. If you haven't seen the Broken Circle Breakdown, it is another fucked up like hillbilly indie gut fest, like not violence but like drama, the type of stuff that you feel exhausted watching. So definitely check that out. But that tracking shot, right, so they're at the car show, and it's it's very reminiscent of Scorsese, Goodfellas, in the Copacabana, like the camera is moving, and it's either one long take or there's a couple spots where I think they cheat the edit, but you're just watching it, and I would actually argue that it's the most. And again, I'd love to hear some of your guys' comment. It's the most actually erotic and sexy part of this film, because this film, although it deals with a lot of sex and nudity, it feels very androgynous, and it feels almost anti-sexual. Like even her making out with the woman and stuff like that, because it very quickly goes to like what that scene you're talking about, where she almost like bites her nipple off and stuff like that. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Like, do you find this like an erotic film, or? Is there people there?
I would
still?
say, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I'm like, she is just deeply in love with a car, and it was a beautiful car. Can't deny it. When
Caddy.
the car knocks at her door, it's like she gotta go. I do think though that the scene you're talking about is actually the sexiest scene, and I think it is, especially when you watch the movie the first time and you're not quite sure what to expect. You have that preamble of her childhood, which is very bizarre. She's clearly a child that the father does not like. Um, she's annoying and she's disturbed. Like, we need to talk about Kevin level. Like, he doesn't connect with her. Very interesting fact though, the father is played by Bertrand Bonello, the director of The Beast. So he's pretty iconic. He's not an actor. But I think it's a film that is about love and about desire in a lot of ways. Again, I do think that she learns to love outside of her sexual need, and learns to love like someone in a more tender father to daughter, father to son, daughter. And I think that that's very transformative for her entire ethos. Like, she is redeemed in a way by that love, but up until that point, I think it's like she's almost like an animal in a lot of ways. Like, she barely speaks. She seems very impulsive. I find it very the only thing, like, what you were saying, like, it's a movie of emotions. You can't overthink some things, but like, it's kind of crazy she got to this point in her life before she started to kill people. It feels
But
like it would have
don't you
happened
think
earlier.
that that inciting incident is the attempted sexual assault? Like maybe she just
Yeah,
didn't get pushed. She didn't get pushed to defend herself, and then once she did it, because she also doesn't. Unless I'm missing something, for a serial killer, she kills until she transforms from Alexia to, is it Alex, to
Mhm.
the son? Because once I don't think she kills anybody when she switches into that persona.
she thinks about it, but she doesn't. I
Mm.
don't think. I could be wrong, but I think you're right. She does not.
And the way I watched this, like that guy in the car, that wasn't the first one she killed. Because they, in the news report, when she's making the sandwich on the couch and the dad's eating the cereal, they're talking about another body being found, and it was up to like 4 or 5 at that point when that guy's body was found, which made it seem like she was doing all of that because she wasn't like phased by it at all.
It's very possible. I think you could read it that way. You could also read it that it's a film about the French culture and society, or culture in general, where people are depersonalized and there's just like rampant violence. But I do think that it's a specific way that she kills people. It does seem like it's possible she killed before, but she's just accelerating, I guess.
Well, and let's talk about it. So Agatha, is it Roussel? Is that how you'd say
Yeah,
it?
I would say Roussel.
Like, what a first film. Like, really, she did some short work and stuff like that, but really, and she has to carry the film without, so the first half, minimal dialogue, second half, basically zero dialogue. So it's all like body, like it's all emotion in the face and stuff like that. Just fucking kills it. So she's a former French journalist, model, and actress. She's also the co-founder of the feminist magazine Peach and a custom embroidery company, Cheeky Boom. She does actually have a film coming out in December called How to Make Gravy, where she's gonna be in the supporting cast on that. But like, her acting performance was fantastic. I mean, both her and Vincent Lindon. But I mean, he's like a big famous French actor, and she's going toe to toe. I mean, the reality, the primary male actor doesn't even come in until the second half, and so she is just like cutting a swath as an actor through this film with really just like academic training. Like, it's so impressive.
Yeah, I think some people just have presence, and like she has that level of like, you want to watch her on screen. She's she's very beautiful. Like I think that's goes without saying, but she's very unusually beautiful, and she has just a watchable face, and it is a very physical performance, and I think she does a great job at really portraying this like physical transformation that she's going through, this pregnancy, this imposed boyhood as well, because that's also like quite difficult on her body. She's binding, she broke her nose, and I think the movie does a very good job in minimizing the dialogue. I wonder if that was always part of the plan, or because she doesn't have the experience, like, oh, it might be easier, but it works so well. I can't imagine it any other way, really.
Yeah. Again, so who would you recommend this film for? And then I do want to talk a bit about Raw and Angst and as we move off of this topic, because I do think there is a way that all these films kind of like relate to each other. But yeah, so who would you recommend this particular film for?
I think everybody should. No, not everybody.
Children, pregnant women, grandma.
Yeah, my boss actually saw it in cinema, and he's fainted. He couldn't take it.
Is this which boss from which of your?
From Cult Montreal.
Really?
Yeah, he could not take it. It was during the nose scene, I think. He was sitting down though, so he was fine. But he's like I lost consciousness.
Yeah, I feel like she like, you know, if Cronenberg invented the genre, like this is elevated. This is elevated body horror. I haven't seen The Substance yet. I'm looking forward to seeing that. We're probably going to talk about it on the show. Have you seen The Substance yet?
I did. I don't like it very much. I think that this movie is closer. A lot of people compare The Substance to David Cronenberg. I think this is closer just because of the level of ideas that she's dealing with, and but I think they're both interesting. So going back to who would I recommend it to? People who like David Cronenberg, and I guess anybody who, I don't know. I guess if you're interested in bodies and are okay with seeing them really fucked up, I think that's a pretty big audience. You just have to be prepared that it is like pretty unsettling.
Scott?
Like I agree. I would say anybody that's, you know, looking for a film about a connection, right? Because we're all looking for connections. So if you like The Notebook, I think this is the fucking movie for you.
That's your double feature, Notebook and Titane.
Oh my, 100%. Like, what do you want? The car is like, you know what I want. Like, what do you want? Say it to me. It's like honk honk.
Hey, how you doing there? Listen, couldn't help but notice you across the parking lot.
But yeah, no, I think it was because it was so well done, right? Like, and I think with this movie, it's one that like stays with you like after the fact too. Like you don't just walk out of it and never think about it again. Like it's always like fucking inside your brain thinking about it. So I think it's like the smile entity, right? Like you just got to pass this on to everybody else to watch this.
So although I wouldn't pair them with The Notebook, what I think you should watch with The Notebook is Blue Valentine. I think those are great bookend films. Yeah, man, this, like, if you're into like extreme, like you better like body horror like this. But also if you just like beautifully shot, like a beautifully shot film, but you can handle the violence, or you're gonna spend a good 50% of this sucker like looking away. But this is actually Julia's sophomore film. Her first feature. She does have a TV movie called Mange, Eat, and then she has the short film Junior. She does deal with a lot of the same subject matter. It's interesting because she specifically doesn't like to be referred to as a female filmmaker, but like a filmmaker who is a woman. But her subject matter is, I would say, is definitely female focused, female lens. But her film Raw is her OG kind of first feature, which has like, if you're looking for more of a narrative structure, I think Raw is a great film. I watched it last night. What are you guys' thoughts on Raw?
Ladies first.
I really like it. I like Titane better, but I think that they're both fantastic. I feel as though it's, again, the film deals a lot with alienation and alienation with bodies in a lot of ways. I mean, this is a young student who's entering veterinary school, which seems horrific in France. The hazing and the atmosphere is so uninviting, and you have to think that these people are kind of, they want to help animals, and it's just a terrible, terrible place. And the character named Justine, which I always like, she kind of goes to school. It's the same school her sister studies at, and she has a hard time adjusting, but then develops, I guess, a taste for meat and flesh.
I would say specifically human meat,
yeah,
and flesh.
a little. Yep, and it's I didn't end up rewatching it for this, but if I'm not mistaken, she didn't really eat meat, or she didn't eat raw meat before this.
Right, they're
Uh,
vegetarians.
yeah, which is also kind of funny. Like,
Which, if you watch it, when you get to the ending, I think it explains why they're vegetarians and why the mother, at the beginning of the film, when she almost gets that little piece of meat in her food, she's like, because it seems like once you eat the meat, it triggers the cannibalistic response. So that's why I think they raise their children to be vegetarians, is to try and stave that off. That was my takeaway. That was my takeaway.
Well, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, I have nothing to say.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, to me, like, the whole cannibalism is just like a metaphor. I think this just deals with addiction, right? And especially like families that deal with like genetic
predisposition.
Yeah, in terms of whether it's alcohol, drugs, or anything, like once it's in the system, how hard it is to overcome it, and each family member kind of deals with it differently. Like, my favorite scene in this movie is like when the sister gets her finger cut off, and then she does like the Michael Myers like dead man thing, and then looks at her other sister just fucking gnawing at her finger, and then that one single tear comes down, and just like, fuck, you're the same as us, right? And then she tries to teach her the her ways, kind of thing. But yeah, it's just like, and then when you get to that ending, you find out like the dad's like, you got to find a way to like overcome this kind of thing. To me, I like Raw more than Titane, but they're both very well done.
Yeah, I think Raw's a great coming of age story as well. One of my favorite scenes, actually, on your topic of addiction, though, is when she's thrashing around in her bed. It's very reminiscent of the way you often see opioid addicts when they're in between hits, right? Like the cold sweats, the dope sickness. Like, it really, really looks like dope sickness. And I thought that was like really beautifully shot. It's a very cool film too. And one of the things I think, and I don't know, Justine, you work more in French cinema and stuff like that as well, is it's so in Raw, again, there's nudity all over the place, but it's like not gratuitous. It's treated in such a like non-issue manner that you almost don't notice it, right? Like that, like when they're dancing in the dormitory and stuff, there's all these topless women and stuff like that. And it's just treated as like, I mean, it's just day to day. So do you think that's intentional, or do you think that's just because that's how France is?
I mean, I want to say I think it's just how France is, but I do think like I agree with you that it's not she doesn't necessarily eroticize nudity. There are moments I think in her films where it comes close, but for the most part, it's very like matter of fact. It's like this is what bodies are like, and sometimes we're naked, and sometimes we have sex, and sometimes we do things. It's almost like clinical, and I
Mm,
think the uh, I can only speculate, but apparently, her parents were doctors, both of
they were.
them,
Yeah, they were both doctors.
and I think that from what I understand, she's like it was just very normal to talk about bodies and biology in a very cold clinical way, and to deal with mortality. And I think there is an element of like it's a film about a veterinary school. I do think that the addiction metaphor works very strong. But I also think it's like how do we view our bodies? And I think T10 as well kind of touches on these ideas of like they are kind of sacks of meat that we put a lot of meaning onto and a lot of fears, anxieties, and questions. And she's almost deconstructing that by just making it so ordinary in a lot of ways, but then shocking us with quite extreme scenes. Like the I my favorite scene is also when she's eating the finger, and it's quite funny too. I think it's like it's for all of how dark and disgusting and difficult some of her movies are. I think she has a sense of humor about it. I don't think it's just like miserable,
Um,
but
what did you think of the scene where her sister's waxing her? Like,
it's
I
terrible.
had trouble watching that. Like, they sit so long, the camera sits so long on the wax, on the pubic hair, and you know, like you can, it's so visceral, you can feel it. Like you're like, ah, oh, god damn, that hurts.
It does hurt. And it's like I also as somebody's like I have two sisters too, and like there is like this it's like a very intimate scene. Like it's very like intimate with each other's bodies, but it's also there is this like because of the framing of the film, there is this undercurrent of like violence to something that's also mundane, right? And I think it kind of like it kind of brings out the violent ways we care for our form, right? Like we're not always gentle with our I don't want to say health because like hair removal is not health, it's like cosmetic, but it is a quite a violent act, and it is transformative, and it is intimate, and it is also very hard to do by yourself. And I don't know, it's just like it's such a strange scene. Strange in the sense of like you don't normally see like the only other hair removal scene of that sense I can think of is like the 40-year-old virgin, which is played for laughs more.
Oh, we're gonna need more wax.
I'm staying. This is gonna be good.
Um, I think you kind of nailed it. That what the one of the things she does is she just lingers. She did it in Titan too when you were talking about the abortion scene. She just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make you watch this, and we don't want to seeing it in real time is like unsettling.
Yeah, because usually you cut away or you imply violence, which is what they do in Titane as well, right? Like you said, like with this face smashing and the nose punching, a lot of it is cut away and implied. But this is just like you're gonna be here the whole process.
Mm-hmm.
So the director, so Julia, how do you say her last name again?
Ducournau.
Thank you. So she actually has another film coming out in probably 2025-ish. It should be in production right now called Alpha. And Neon, which was the distribution company for Titane, is going to be handling that as well. So definitely we'll be looking forward to that. Any other stuff on her, like on Julia or these films? And I do want to just touch base quickly on the 1983 fucking violent film Angst. Yeah, so before we get to Angst, is there anything else you guys want to talk about, director or the films that we've talked about?
No.
Oh,
Her short film is great. Go watch it. I think it used to be on Mubi. It's a Junior. It's also with the same actress.
yeah. Okay. So the reason I want to talk about Angst is it's a crazy film. You actually Justine are the one that like I had never actually seen it. And so when I watched it, I want to know why. So you were given two options between Titane and Angst. And so I want to know why those were the two options you put forward. Why was Angst on that list?
Angst is terrible. It's terrible and good. It's great. I don't know. I feel like Angst is strangely easy to see, but people don't see it. Like it's always on Tubi, like it's been on Mubi before, but people don't really watch it. And I think because it's a very pure horror film, but it is so unwatchable in for like I think a general audience because it's so unrelentlessly bleak and depressing and violent in a way that feels too real sometimes. It's basically a story of a serial killer who is trying to murder a family. He's stupid. He's also really bad at killing people because what we forget watching slasher films and all that, it's actually hard to kill a person. And so all these like murder scenes are so
Clumsy is the word I
yeah,
would use.
and it's so difficult. It's like it's strange to say, but it's more difficult to watch than like an easy kill or a bloody kill. It's like Ben, this sucks. He sucks. I feel like to be like this is we spend so much time like not we but like society like there's like the romance of like the Hannibal Lecters, the Ted Bundys, the genius serial killers, whatever. It's like a lot of them are dumbasses. A lot of them are not smart. They're not cool people. They're monsters with probably head traumas. Like you're not special if you kill people. Um and I think this film is like just showing how brutal the whole thing is.
Yeah, and the death often at the hands of these people does not come surgically. It comes in a brutish, like clumsy, blunt manner, painfully long. And yeah, not again, not clean and surgical and not over quickly. Scott, what about you? Did you get a chance to watch it?
Okay, first I'm going to apologize to Justine. Um, I did watch it, and I found like this was like a really fucking bad episode of Whose Line Is It Anyway? Because it just seemed like everything was like, while the way the director did this and cut this, it just feel like 100% this was just like improv, like to the actors, because it's like, okay, you're in the house now, run down the stairs for some reason, now lock the door, and he flips the guy in the wheelchair over for no apparent reason, and then while he's tying one person up, the mom's just standing there, and it's like, okay, now you got to do something with the mom. It just like I was laughing half the time because it just seemed like it was just like, just fucking just do it. Like it didn't seem like there was a script. It was just like the day they showed up, it's like, okay, this is what's happening, just act it out kind of thing, right?
To
Which
me, go ahead, Zach. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, which is bad because this is like based on a true story, and like I said, like because it was done like somewhat manical, the way the cutting was and the film like camera options were, that like to me it didn't really, like the terror that this actual family probably endured with this actual serial killer, right? It to me it just didn't come off like well.
But to me,
Right.
so this is where I actually agree more with Justine, is that I think the clumsiness of him doing silly stuff makes it feel real because he is not even the cab, right? So he gets in the cab, and to the audience, there's basically no dialogue in this film from the character. It's all internal. It's all voiceover. So he's getting out of jail, having already murdered in his past. And his first thoughts are like, I basically can't wait to get out and murder. He gets in the cab. He tries to do it. But again, he's not slick. He's not cool. He's going to choke her. And she gets away by basically scaring him away. And then the next family he runs into, that's his victim. So there's no thought process. And I think it really shows the mind of like a pure psychopath. You know what I mean? Someone who's just there to kill and is just so consumed by the lust of violence, the erotic aspect of it, that he can't contain himself. And he's not good at it, right? So, and I thought the camera movements, the phonetic, dynamic camera movements, like you're just like, you see this animal's face. And I mean, at points he's covered in blood. And then at other points, the camera is high in the air and you're basically getting to see the diorama of the world kind of playing out underneath you. What do you guys think? Good. Do you like this film though? Like,
I like it, but I don't think you're necessarily wrong, Scott, because I think it's like it's a movie. I don't even think the director's made anything else, like nothing of note. Like I don't really know anything about him. I think there is like a laziness to the film, but I think like it's very stupid in a lot of ways. And I think that the lead actor, it's a different voice. The voiceover is not even him. It's they hired somebody else. Like there's this disconnect. But I think that
Did you
what
watch
the
it in German
directors,
or did you watch it dubbed?
I watched it in I haven't seen it recently. I didn't
Oh,
rewatch
so
it.
that German, that's not the, because the actor is known mostly from Das Boot. Erwin Lieder. He was in Das Boot.
I
Mechanic and
on Letterbox it says that it was Robert Hunger Bundler who did the voice.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's a different actor. It's a different person because it's like a narrator technically,
Yeah.
just reading the
Mm.
actual like
Okay.
psychiatric evaluation of the actual serial killer, right?
I think though it's like the character is so stupid. Like he's like, and the film is like kind of trying to see the world through his eyes. And I mean, it can be a test of patience to watch a movie from the point of view of a functional idiot, you know, like because that's what this guy is. Like he's not operating at full cylinders, you know. He's not just bad at what he does, he's very stupid. And he doesn't have like because again, like he doesn't have insight. Like he doesn't have an interior world. So it's a film where even the people around him don't, because he doesn't see them as people. But it's again, I also see why it's silly and a trial. I think that there's also a reason why it's not always watched, because it's a bit of a challenge too.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you guys recommend this film or?
I don't think you want to hear my like if you're in for a good laugh, like if you want a comedic view of Halloween, sure. Right? Because both cases, I don't understand how this guy has been in jail for 20 years of his life and he knows how to drive a car now. Like who taught him how to drive a car?
Yeah. I mean, again, it's sort of like Michael Myers, right? Like he gets out and you're like, okay, right away. He somehow has always been in a mental institution, but he knows how to drive a car at this point. Anyway, yeah, I think Angst is a great, contained, violent serial killer film. It is available on Mubi, so yeah, definitely check it out. If you like any of the stuff we just talked about, definitely throw this sucker on. I think it's only like 80 minutes or 75 minutes or something like that. I actually watched it in 4 sections. I just kind of kept it open on my laptop because you can kind of watch it in chunks and you just come back on and you hit play and you're like, yep, still running around the house. Oh, he's now going to choke that lady out and stick his hand down her throat or something like that, right? So, okay. Well, I mean, do you guys have anything else you want to talk about before we let Justine go?
Good. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Justine, and we will talk to you later. So one thing, Scott, I forgot to bring up is Titane has a 90% from the critics and a 85% from the audience. It's got a 108 running time. I don't have a budget, but it did do 5 million at the box office. And do you have anything else you want to say before I finish this off with a quote?
No.
Okay, cool. Yeah, you could just say no right quickly so the audience doesn't have to listen to your exceedingly long pauses. So Mark Fenney of the Boston Globe had this to say about Titane. Does it make sense? No, but it has its own internal logics. It's emotionally coherent. Viewers may not like those emotions, but they do hang together.
And that is our wrap for the day. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. Tell your friends. If you want to get a hold of us, reach us at the www.howdyoulikethatmovie.com.
Scott, any thoughts?
Sorry, I was in the midst of a long pause. Fuck you, motherfucker. Sorry, I'm reading my notes. But sometimes I gotta find them in the format here, so it takes a second because I gotta switch between screens. I apologize.
After in our 5th year, Scott's still learning how to do a podcast. Audio medium.
Production by Rod Shaver, Vader Monkey Productions.